From the beginning of time, creative works have attempted to take their viewers and readers and watchers and players to new worlds. A magical fantasy land, a flourishing landscape, a futuristic city. Creativity was always about immersion, with descriptions and visuals to assist the consumer with their imagination in viewing these landscapes and new worlds like everyone else. And then video games took it a step further. Now you're in this world. You are controlling someone who lives in this world, in this environment. Voice acting, better graphics, first-person views, all of these things that culminate into immersing the player in this world. So is it weird that I say that it's possible to have too much immersion? First off, this is incredibly subjective. More subjective than a lot of things I've talked about here. People, of course, have different opinions and preferences, so I'm not stating facts here. Immersion is about getting the player to be absorbed into this world they're in. In games, since we don't have to use our imagination nearly as much, especially now with games going above and beyond with their presentation, it's easier, not easy, to get players to all feel like they're part of the same world. I think on a base level, immersion hits all the beats it should in almost every game. Honestly, it's hard to find games that I'm not reasonably immersed in. However, it's definitely difficult to find a game I'm fully immersed in, if that makes sense. So, when am I not fully immersed in a game?
You know how they say the wise cat hides its claws? Let's just say that applies to me too.
I've literally never heard that.
The obvious is that when immersion is bad, I'm not there. Nothing feels cohesive. A lot of elements just feel like they're thrown together. I'm taken out of the game's world pretty easily. That said, most games don't cross this bar at all. The problem I find actually stems from going too far with immersion. For example, in Persona 3, there is a mechanic where your party members get tired. This makes things more realistic, and them more realistic too. If you understand anything about P3, the dark hour exists basically as an extra hour or whatnot to an existing day. So it makes sense for your teammates to get tired when they go in too often, or for too long. However, for me as a player, I could never really get over this. The mechanic just took me out of the game because it's another thing that I have to manage with both my character and my allies. In a game where I'm already limited on time, having to work within the constraints of being tired is frustrating. The funny thing is that if the game just created checkpoints where it'd play a short dialogue or a cutscene with the character saying, "I'm tired, let's go back," at set points in the dungeon, I'd probably not mind it as much because it's a story-related thing at that point. I know it kind of doesn't really make any sense, but it's because that it's part of the story and it's part of the game, then I don't really have to manage it. The game just kind of does that part for me. But creating this mechanic and having to deal with it just felt tedious and annoying to me. I know a lot of people actually like it, but for me, it just pulls me out of the game. So getting back to the main point of too much immersion, when mechanics in a game become too tedious or annoying, they tend to pull a player out of the game. Sometimes this can be as simple as a pointless stamina bar, or it can be something that's meant to add realism and immersion, but just isn't that fun to play or deal with. And sometimes, pushing for too much immersion can break the enjoyment, and a huge part of immersion is enjoying the game that you're playing. If the player is frustrated by the game, they're not going to be immersed in it. Your game can be as realistic as ever before, but if those mechanics get in the way of the player's fun, then immersion will break.
Well, obviously. Shape just cosmetic.
Pardon?
Video games are first and foremost games. People push for realism and want realism, but I personally think there's still a healthy boundary between realistic and actually real. Even for games pushing full-blown realism in their graphics, I don't know if I ever want to see that in the faces of the characters. I feel like right now we're at a good point where games should be. Realism, especially on people, is not fully realistic, but instead it's close, and it still looks fantastic. Environments, though, look incredible, and I think that's good. But I can still get immersed in a game with a cartoonish or anime art style. And I think that speaks to my reasoning as why we should limit realism in some ways. Going further into game mechanics, sure, you need to give players limitations, but making your game have a full-on hunger and thirst meter when it's not a survival game, or giving me an energy bar when I'm already on a timer, just might be a bit too much. The best games are the ones that can grab you and keep you immersed while still being unrealistic in their mechanics. But hey, this is all just how I feel. So why don't you share a time that you felt your immersion was broken by a game in the comments below? And also add why. I think that would help a lot to give context. You can leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe to the channel if you want. I don't do a lot of general topic videos like this, but I hope to do more in the future. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Okay. I'm Super Mario.
Okay, I guess that works.
Oh, that feels- yeah.